I'd prefer to keep the body location hidden.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Yeah, that's probably better for the both of us. I don't want to have to break out the bulldozer again anyway. So, you are known as Tigerfrost online. You run a YouTube channel that's been going for a while. You do Let's Plays, and you've covered a ton of War Thunder content, along with a lot of other people. You're getting a little bit burned out on that game, and I've recently been really enjoying your Let's Play again, Fallout 4 series, Fallout 4 redo. Very straightforward with the names on things. And
yes,
it sort of ties in with the majority of your content. You seem to be the kind of person that launches something up and just gives I guess, how should it be put? Like just an honest first impressions or whatever impression of whatever you're doing. You seem like a really straightforward and, to use the words of the European Canadian, passionate guy.
Passionate? Oh, that sent tingles down my spine.
Yep, that's what we're talking about. And of course, looking at your Discord server and your profile, it's fairly obvious you're a fan of anime as well. What am I leaving out?
I think that pretty much covers the basics, I mean.
Okay, so let's talk about you. You were born, and then things happened. Tell me about that.
Exactly. I was born. I took my first breath. Without that, I wouldn't be here. And, I don't know, my childhood was pretty basic. Played video games. Didn't like school. And now we're here.
Here we are, indeed. So, you took your first breath, even your second, 4 or 5 breaths.
Even my third.
4 or 5 breaths in, it was even no longer necessary to describe your breathing.
Exactly.
But eventually, you came to the point you are now. Tell me a little bit about family, mom and dad. Did you have brothers, sisters? What was that like growing up?
Oh, I have a brother and a sister. They are vastly older than me. And unfortunately, before, when I was too young, there was, my dad was in a relationship with somebody else, and thus my siblings weren't here all the time. They lived with their mother. So I didn't get to see them that often, but it was always a joy when they came over. Now, unfortunately, well, let's just say things are kind of watery between us. They've taken certain paths that I don't exactly agree with.
Okay. Coming from the man who has embraced his true anime fan, they must be dark paths indeed to diverge. So when you said that your dad and mom didn't have a relationship or didn't stay in a relationship, well, you could pick either one. I can relate to that because my wife's dad and mom never had a relationship, and my dad and mom should have never had a relationship. So I think that's probably about as much description as we need to have on that one. It doesn't sound like a super comfortable situation, but let's see, brothers and sisters. You stayed with your mom or did your parents break up, or were they always separate? And then I'm assuming you stayed with mom for a while you were growing up?
There was never separation for me. This was somebody else entirely. And then she gave birth to I guess I didn't specify. My apologies. Half brother and half sister. That should, because then my dad got with who my mother is now, and they've never been apart.
Man, I already need a timeline to follow. Which part of the Tigerfrost Stay Night series should you start with?
Complicated.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the birth of an anime fan already. But let's see, what should I ask you about next? You mentioned that you didn't enjoy school. Tell me a little bit about the schooling that you went to, and I have the suspicion you seem like a really straightforward guy, so I can already sort of picture what you were like when you're going through school, but everybody transforms a little bit over those years, so tell me a little bit about little snot-nosed brat Tigerfrost, and then maybe into junior high and high school, and where you went from there.
Oh, boy. Starting out, I think I was an outgoing person. I was always the class clown in a good way. Then into the mid-years of, elementary school, things quieted down. I considered myself quote-unquote well-behaved, but I think anybody would consider themselves well-behaved, whether or not they were. Things got complicated in middle school. I started to not have much fun, the usual bullying kind of stuff.
Shonen Tigerfrost.
Yep. And then due to the bullying, I ended up leaving public school in 8th grade, before 8th grade was up, and switched to an online schooling service. So I never actually went to high school physically. And then finished my courses online for the next couple of years, and then, that was it. Enough for that. The school thing, I mean.
Interesting. A lot of, there's sort of, a lot of people don't go entirely homeschool. Like, sometimes they'll, and I mean, you were basically self-schooled from the sounds of it, and makes sense, you're an intelligent guy. I think we're both cursed with the curse of feeling like we're smarter than most of the people around us. But, oh man, anyway, it makes me think about my brother too. But a lot of people are either homeschooled for a while and then they come into public school around high school, or then there's your case where you were in public school for a while and then you moved out of that and took hold of your own education, which really, that sort of is the goal for public education anyway, is to give you enough information and enough practice at learning things that you have a good foundation for sort of teaching yourself for the rest of your life, because once you get into college, nobody's holding your hand. And even with the internet age, that's so much more approachable, which you sort of brought up. Your schooling was, you mentioned that was an online thing. What were, I mean, obviously avoiding the bullshit of high school, which is pretty much permeated into most high schools. There's a certain amount of just bad atmosphere, and then you get out into the rest of the world and it's like, oh wait, people don't actually behave like that as adults. But other than getting away from the bullying you were getting toward high school, what were some of the differences you noticed? And am I right in assuming that you sort of took hold of your own education at that point?
Exactly. That was the biggest difference with online. With physical, or middle school for me, it was the general, you go to school every day, you have your history and your math classes and your social studies or whatever it's called, around the different worlds, locations in this one world. But switching to an online schooling, you picked exactly what you wanted to do. There was no do everything. It was exactly what path you wanted to follow. You kind of set out your career path, and then they built a tree of what you would need to take to get to that point.
And I'm assuming that worked out pretty well for you. That probably freed up, as you sort of implied there, a lot of your schedule. Did that give you some more time for games and anime, or was that something that sort of developed later?
It was perfect for schedule because, you didn't have to wake up at a certain time. You just needed to make sure you had your stuff done by a certain time, so you could do it whenever you wanted as long as it got done. And so my schedule was pretty much always full, thankfully. Or free, rather, I think.
You're free for you to fill it with Let's Plays and anime reviews. I've noticed just adding up things, you spend a lot of time sitting in front of the computer, and that's something that I can definitely relate to. So, one thing that sort of came to mind, my younger brother, who, I mentioned that I sort of have the smarty pants disease, and he got it bad. And really smart kid when he was going to school, but also extremely disorganized. And for a while, my mom tried having him do a homeschool deal where he basically taught himself, only he just screwed around and printed off pictures of porn from our dial-up internet.
Oh boy.
Oh, hi brother, how you doing? But priorities, am I right? But he sort of lacked the discipline to drive himself. He needs somebody to tell him what to do. And I guess the real question I had out of this is, back when my brother was homeschooling, we're talking dial-up internet, you can't use the phone because it's screeching at you, and you got about a 50-50 chance of downloading a 500 kilobyte JPEG before the connection breaks. So, do you think that the advances in internet availability and reliability really affected your ability to homeschool yourself, basically?
Absolutely. If internet hadn't advanced itself and was anything similar to what the experience you just explained, I don't think I would have ever gotten even a week into that schooling type.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you could almost say that your method of homeschooling would have been either a lot more expensive because you'd have to, do things like get CDs and run those. Those get pretty spendy, especially for a niche thing like homeschooling. Or you just wouldn't be able to, and you'd have to deal with either switching schools or some other probably less beneficial alternative to just getting bullied constantly. So I think we can thank the internet age for the experience you were able to have. Moving on from there, I'm not sure, how old are you now?
21.
21. Okay, so you're still, I felt like I was pretty young when I was 21, and now that I'm an ancient old man of 30, I think I'm 33. It seems like you're
33?
You're just a child.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh, can I swear?
Dude, fucking say whatever you want to say, man.
Fucking say whatever I want to say. Got it. I thought I made a mistake there.
No problems. I think that we stigmatize words too much. I would love for people to just feel free to use the vocabulary that's comfortable for them. So that's what I go for on my channel. And one day it'll come back to bite me, and they won't let me be a youth pastor anymore. But that day is not today.
Wait a minute.
Anyway, yes. Hey, you can save your questions for later. I'm leaving some mysterious facts about myself in here. Anyway, after your homeschooling, did you get a GED? How did that work out? And then did you go for more schooling after that?
I wanted to move. I wanted to move towards college, obviously, and was able to, and was accepted, but unfortunately, there's one very important part to getting into a college, and that's money. And unfortunately, I didn't have the money at the time, and thus have yet to go back to it.
not rich enough or poor enough to go to college. I can relate to that.
Exactly.
So you have been in the real world. I don't know how to put it. Not entering further training. So have you picked up some part-time jobs? What's it looking like for employment for you, or are you just dedicated to going full NEET?
I am at the moment, without a doubt, full NEET. I have tried to look for jobs in the past, but it never amounted to anything, unfortunately.
Okay, I can relate to that entirely. I went NEET. I went NEET after dropping out of college and spent most of my time not going to class, playing Halo and watching anime and reading manga. So I feel like we have some things in common.
Perfect.
But I just, I blew like $4,000 going for a degree that wouldn't have been worth anything if I'd gotten it anyway. So it can be really depressing to get out of school where things are sort of planned for you and you're just expected to do well in your studies, and then you get out in the world and nobody hands you a job, unless you're one of those fortunate sons. And I think a lot of us experience, especially with the timing of you coming of age, that the economy wasn't doing super well and it's starting to come back a little bit, but it's still not to the point where you walk out on the street and people are just beckoning for workers.
Exactly.
So your experience is familiar to a lot of people, and you're holding up that NEET flag with pride. It's a how do I put this properly? I think it's really important for there to be some kind of hobby that you can get into that's accessible to everybody, and things like games and anime really work out well because you don't have to blow a ton of money that you don't have because you don't have a job, and yet you can still be passionate about something and pour yourself into something until doors open in the rest of the world. And I feel like your YouTube channel is good enough that I'd love to see you be a successful full-time YouTuber, but you could sort of say that about a lot of channels. YouTube isn't doing people favors either when it comes to making a living. But that wasn't a question, was it? So, I tend to ramble a little bit. I better give you some time to talk. I've asked about a few things, and one of the things that I commonly ask is love life. So, first off, I know I haven't asked you too much about the anime, but you seem to be a curator of high-quality waifus. So you could tell me a little bit about that, and then give me a summary or an exploration into meat space, and let me know anything you want to let me know about your real life, love life, girlfriend, that kind of stuff.
So you actually you want me to touch on a waifu?
Touch on a waifu, man. I know you're passionate about things, so
oh,
give me the business, man. Teach me the ways. I guess, let me put it this way. First question, what makes a quality waifu? I know that's something that you have some opinions on. And give me some examples of, I don't know if you've been dedicated to the same waifu for your whole anime experience. I don't think that's the intended nature of anime. You're sort of encouraged to adopt a waifu, maybe one or multiple at a time, but to feel free to move on, such is the nature of the medium. So what makes a quality waifu, and give me some examples from your own life.
What makes a quality waifu? That's a very subjective thing, but from person to person. For me, a quality waifu is a how do I put a dependable, adorable person who is truthfully in love with no sort of BS, and I prefer those with a quieter personality or with a quieter voice. And for specifically anime related, I would have to say that there was a gap in my anime watching, if that makes any sense, where in early 2014, I stopped watching anime for 4 years until mid 2018. And then when I got back into it, I learned about this perfect family-friendly, wholesome visual novel series called Nekopara. And in it is a character by the name of Vanilla, who I have never put down since. Not a single waifu has ever topped this one, for me personally. So that's the extent of my waifu knowledge.
Okay, and that sounds very reasonable. I think that it is important to note that taste in waifu has to be your own personal taste. Otherwise, you're just a useless fanboy, and your affection for your waifu is completely invalid, because your affection needs to be just as true and dedicated as the affection you find with her. And some people like to go for that sort of untamable, bratty, selfish kind of waifu who makes up for her garbage personality with, I don't know, pink hair and anime boobs. But
oh boy, the pink hair thing.
But I know I'm running off of something I heard you say before in one of your videos. But it's true. It's true.
Exactly.
You can't just take some stencil pieces visually and put them on somebody and transform them into waifu material, because a waifu is intended to be, from my limited experience, and I'm just going to be super judgmental because this is the way it should be, and anybody that disagrees with me is just wrong. But a waifu is supposed to be real wife material, someone that if they actually did exist, or if you were capable of having a relationship with them in the anime world, they would be someone you would actually want to have a real committed relationship to. So that means that they have to be trustworthy, they have to be consistent, they have to have a real depth of personality and not just be sort of a pleasure stencil taken from one thing and slapped onto another. And I'd say that you have a refined taste in anime women, sir. But anyway, real world romance. What can you tell? Is there anything to share? Are you looking forward to something in the future?
This is my favorite subject. So I guess you could say that this probably works with the whole shut-in NEET thing. But my relationship experience is about as equal to gum on the bottom of a shoe, in the sense that
they walk on you.
In sense that I've definitely have no current relationship experience. I have I have to do my thing where I start talking about something and don't spend 40 minutes talking about that one thing. In the past, specifically when I was in school, because from my point of view, I don't know how true this is for everyone else, but when I was younger, in middle school, I was like, oh wow, that girl's cute, I love her. But now that I'm older, I think I didn't truthfully really know what love meant until I got much older and matured more. And now I know what love is. What that was back then was not love. But the only relationship experience I've had personally is with a girl in 7th grade. And I was very used to asking girls out and getting rejected. So when a girl came to me to ask me out, I thought it was a joke. So I accepted it was not a joke, and it got very awkward. So I had to cut that off very quickly before things got messy.
Yandere avoided. Carry on.
Exactly. As for now, oh boy, I'm trying to figure out how to do this as simple as possible. Right now, there is somebody I have very strong feelings for, but we are not in a relationship. So that's present tense.
The beautiful pain of unrequited or unrealized romance.
It is very painful, I can tell you that much.
I can relate. I didn't have any success in what they call the game of love, which is a stupid term, until, I think I was like 23 before I met my wife, and she was basically the only person. She was like my first kiss. She was my first like real date. So I am not by any means normal, and I should be a single dorky man, but I happened to encounter my dream girl. So I knew a good thing when I saw it, and I went after that. But that is to say, there is definitely an unlimited amount of opportunity in your future, and things definitely, they never follow a formula when it comes to romance and to love. You could listen to all of the best advice in the world, and you could know all of the odds, but that doesn't matter, because it's one of the most unique experiences for each individual person. And you have a bright future ahead of you. And I think the number one thing is just to keep your head screwed on properly. And if you really care for somebody, it's always essential that they have to be totally free to make whatever decision they want to. And that can be painful, because you have the opportunity of watching somebody you care about very deeply decide to go a completely different direction. And again, that's sort of something I can relate to. But where do we go from here? The things that I've learned about you so far, we are very similar. We're very similar in a lot of our experiences, and I find that really interesting. Usually I find a few things in common with people that I'm interviewing, and that always is like it's one of the best things about doing these interviews. I get to make connections with people in a really... I mean, how much does this stuff usually come up in conversation? You know, like, I'm not going around dating YouTubers, so there's only like one opportunity to get these sort of candid questions in with you guys. And you especially, Tigerfrost, you seem like you could be living a life very similar to the one that I lived up until I was around 21 years old. So, you know what? Things could work out quite well for you. Anyway, one thing, and I do this all the time, it's a really bad habit, and partially because I just forget names anyway, because I'm horrible with them, but I'm Casey. I run the Toshio Thunder YouTube channel. What is your name, Tigerfrost? Or are we going to go with Tigerfrost?
My name will blow you away.
Oh, man.
Tiger.
Tiger? Well, that makes sense.
Not legally, obviously, but I don't use my real name anymore.
Okay. You know, one of my friends from high school dated and then got married to a guy who called himself Tiger. I'm not sure if that was his legal name either, but nobody ever called him anything other than Tiger. Well, it's nice talking with you, Tiger. And usually... Yeah, sorry. I think we're both sort of the kind of person that when we get started talking, we like to really, like, build this monologue in our mind and then work through thoughts piece by piece. I think what I'm trying to say is that I hog the mic. So, it's a perfect segue into the next part of the interview, which is while we've been talking, was there something that you wanted to say, or a question that popped up and you're like, oh, I could talk about that, that I talked over you for, so you didn't get a chance to answer it yet?
My brain is a bucket of bolts. So when it comes to asking questions, that kind of thing doesn't usually cross my mind, usually. As for anything else that I wanted to say earlier, I'm thinking over all the segments we've had, and if there's anything that I didn't fully process. Not really that I can think of, unless it's just avoiding my thought.
Well, I think I might not have asked you quite enough questions yet. It's surprising how many things we have in common. I'm just like, well, I'm interviewing myself now. Because your life was so similar. But, yeah, I mentioned that I'm a youth pastor, currently volunteer youth pastor, which is usually pretty shocking because I'll say words that, you don't hear in church, and I won't use those words in church. They wouldn't let me be a youth pastor if I did that. But thankfully, nobody that's in charge of me, wastes time on YouTube anyway. So, I'm allowed to speak freely, and, I got saved when I was 13. I was sort of raised textbook Christian. I went to church on Sundays and went to Sunday school and got varying degrees of quality education on the Bible, which is to say it wasn't fantastic, but whatever. But man, I had a huge life-altering experience, and now I consider myself a crazy person. So that's where I come from when it comes to religious stuff, which is my way of introducing the question. What's been your experience? How were you raised when it comes to religion? And then what are your own decisions that you've made up to this point?
Regarding religion?
Yeah. What's been your experience?
Growing up, my family was not, and currently is not, strictly religious, but they have their religious beliefs, so I never went to church. Only when I would go over to my grandparents, who were strictly religious, would I end up going to church with them. But I can say that at the time, it was just a field trip for me, because I was very young. And now, over the years, my religious beliefs are very muddy, in that I don't necessarily disbelieve anything, but also don't believe anything. I don't exactly know where my loyalties lie.
Okay, and the term that you'll hear for that from people that use fancy terms is agnostic, which basically means you don't know what to believe. And that's not a terrible position to be in, from my opinion. And of course, there's a lot of people have a lot of different ways of viewing what that really means. But it sort of comes back to the waifu argument that if it's going to be fake, or if it's going to be not good for you, then it's not good. I'd also hazard to say that it's not true, because I'm a huge proponent of the idea that God is good to everybody, and if what you're experiencing is clearly not good, or if it's just something that you do because you've been told to, or some sort of indoctrination, then it's useless too, because it's really meant to be a close personal relationship. But thanks for answering that one. A lot of people are not sure what to believe, like you are. So, with that, I guess what's left? That pretty much sums up the normal rounds of questioning I throw at people. It's been really fun talking with you and discovering more things that I sort of suspected, and now I'm seeing proof that, especially looking back at like 21-year-old me, that's like we had a huge number of things in common. So, what do you think? Any final thoughts?
Oh God, these questions. Any final thoughts question is the one that always gets me.
Hey man, you just start talking and I'll wait for you to finish.
Let's see. Is there anything else? I mean, I could honestly, what I do on YouTube a lot of times when I'm not doing like a Let's Play is literally sit for 4 hours straight and talk without any breath in between. So talking is, I guess you could consider it a hobby, but unfortunately, while normally I'm able to ramble on for ages, sometimes I don't have. Well, now I'm drawing a blank. Perfect.
I thought of a question. So,
good.
You've talked about your past, and that gives a pretty good impression of how you got to where you are. But about your future, I know that you're looking forward to moving forward in life, and there's sort of that tension between things not really progressing at this point in a few areas, and where you are now. But what are your dreams for the future? And you can, if you could have anything you want, what would you be doing? And then you can take it down to earth and be like, well, here's what I hope happens next week.
Okay, let me just mute that. Future. Oh boy. Future is something that has been undecided, as tomorrow I could stub my toe, and that could change everything. If we want to talk long-term and short-term future plans, is what you're asking, basically?
Sure. Dreams, plans, goals, any of that stuff.
Well, I can start with one of my dreams, which is very cliche for the type of person that I am, and that's where I would love to live in Japan. And there's absolutely no reason that you should assume any reason as to why that is. But this is actually a dream. It's easy to tell that I want to go to Japan because, hey, anime is, cool. But in truth, I discovered anime after discovering Japan and its history. That's how I got into anime.
Interesting.
And, of course, anime helped enhance my interest. There's no denying that. And unfortunately, the whole me stop watching anime in 2014 thing was related to the fact that I kind of gave up on that dream early on because I was 16 or something at the time, and there just wasn't, I couldn't legally get a job yet in my state, and I couldn't, there was no way I could afford something like that. I didn't know Japanese. I didn't have any schooling that I could go to for Japanese or anything. But that dream was kind of re-sparked in 2018, and I do still hope someday that I can move to Japan. And I'm very much aware that living in Japan, especially a hotspot near Tokyo or any of the large cities, is a very, very stressful life. But I don't care. I think I would be happy with that type of stress because I don't have that type of stress right now. And it's actually something I would like to have. Because as fun as it is being a NEET, there comes a time where I strive to get up every morning and work for 8 hours straight at a desk job or something like that. And it's something that I want to experience no matter how boring it is. So I just kind of want to have at least a basic life in a place I want to live, because I certainly don't want to live here anymore. And let's see. I mean, I long term. That's my long term live goal. But obviously, there is one other thing that I dream, and it's also very cliche, and that is that I would personally like to have my own family. And so I want that along with living a life that I haven't been able to experience yet. So that's long term. I didn't even talk about career. So I guess you could consider mid to long term career. The college I wanted to get into is called ABC, which is Animal Behavior College. And I would like to become a veterinarian and work on animals, because animals are wonderful, smelly little creatures. And I have always loved cats. I didn't like dogs when I was younger because there was always a neighbor that had this big dog that always jumped on me.
So you're saying...
But I came around.
You're saying Necopara is professional research. Carry on.
It is professional research, exactly. I've learned very well how to work on cats, and specifically work on, animals have a specific, how do animals coexist? How do they exist? They have to reproduce, and unfortunately, Necopara is, it's kind of a fantasy. I guess I can just, I can cut the crap. Necopara, yes, it's cute, it's adorable. I love cat girls, but we don't have cat girls, unfortunately. So I just have to pretend. No, in truth, though, I do love animals, and it really sucks when I'm strolling along on the internet in my, cozy home, and I see an article that says, this species is endangered, or this species has gone extinct, or I come across an even sickening one where I learn about some person that has shot a cat with an arrow because it was in their yard or something. That kind of stuff just rubs me the wrong way. So I want to take care of animals. And that's where my vet kind of stuff comes from.
As I hear you describing these things, one of the things that I keep on, forgetting how to give an interview in this one. Because another thing, when you're like, I don't want to live here anymore, and I was like, oh, son of a bitch, I didn't even ask where you live. We'll get to that. True. We'll get to that. But also, especially looking back at when I was, younger, back in the years of the strength of my youth, I really wanted to, whatever. I had so much love, and the thing about people is they will not let you love them as much as you want to love them. I don't know if that makes sense, but people get sort of weirded out if you genuinely. Even in a pure sense, you just love somebody, and then that's they have to be defensive because it's the world we live in, and then they're like, do I have room in my life for this person? But a cat will let you love them. You know what I mean? They'll let you take care of them. They
don't complain.
They sort of just start expecting you to once you get started. And that's one of the cool things about a lot of animals, is that we as human beings definitely still have that need to just be good to other living creatures, and animals tend to make that a lot easier than people can do sometimes. But man, let me tell you, as somebody that has 2.5 kids right now, or I guess maybe 2.2. 2.3? Anyway, there's a wiggly chicken nugget inside of my wife right now.
Wait a minute.
But yeah, it's we're gonna have our third baby in the fullness of time if everything comes out nicely. So it's really exciting, and also completely unplanned. She was like, there's no room, and I'm just like, yes, this is awesome. But anyway, I have two girls right now, a toddler and almost 11-month-old, and they're so they're easy to love because they just take it as granted that you're daddy, so you're supposed to love me. So you're actually like allowed to just be good to them all the time. And there's so much challenge that it's like rewarding every day. And it's also like you sort of die a lot faster when you have kids, and you're just happy about it because a lot of reasons. But it's definitely having a chance to do good things for animals and to take care of them in a way that's good for everybody. Being able to be a vet, that's awesome. And having the opportunity to raise a family is just, of course, it's a cliche, the human race survives because we do these things, but there's nothing like it, and it's definitely a worthy dream to have. So where the hell do you live, Tigerfrost? Tiger, now that we're like an hour into the interview, I'll ask you the most basic question after your name, which took me half an hour. Where did you grow up? And tell me a bit about wherever the heck you come from.
Somewhere on the outskirts of the Milky Way galaxy lays the Sol System, and there exists a single currently livable planet for billions of these odd two-legged creatures known as humans. That's where I grew up, was on a planet called Earth. And I grew up, I was born in Wisconsin, a town called Boscobel in the United States. But we did not live there, I don't think. We moved around a few bits for my early years. It's kind of watery in memory, but for the past, I think 21, past 15 years, I've lived here in a town called Platteville, Wisconsin. Hold your breath, because we are famous. We have the world's largest M. Yep. Nope.
Oh, snap.
What a great thing to be proud of. But no, it's true. For some reason, we have an M that's big enough to be seen in space. It's very boring. We are a very small town. Well, we're just above what you would classify as a city in the United States. So I think we're about 12,000 population. But that's 12,000 on paper, but when you actually see the damn thing, it's like 200. That's where I live. That's pretty much where I've grown up, was here in Platteville. Grew up here, live here. It's boring as shit.
I don't know if I heard you say it in a video before, or if it was just the impression I got from you, sort of how you sort of sound like you're bored out of your mind as soon as you leave your house, that I suspected you lived in the Midwest. But, as far as some practical advice for your dream of living in Japan one day, you might want to think about possibly moving to the West Coast. It's sort of the closest place to Japan in America. There's a huge, actually, Japanese ethnicity population here on the Oregon coast, as well as a growing Korean ethnicity population. And it's sort of, I would consider West Coast, especially, honestly, up around Oregon, to be a great hub of Japanese culture in America, and not just like selling you Japanese culture, but actual Japanese culture. I like to think of myself as like a reformed Japanophile. I got married in a Japanese garden that was cultivated by another, just like average white guy American that just really likes Japanese culture. And then he came from. Anyway, I'm totally rambling now, but you should move to the West Coast. Is what I'm trying to say. Maybe before you die of boredom in the Midwest, because it can really. I guess the U.S. is so incredibly diverse that sometimes when you really want to move somewhere else, it's just because there's so much in the U.S. that we don't experience growing up where we grew up, that your dream home might be closer than you think. I don't know. I'm not trying to like change your vision, but like just say maybe your dream's more possible than you thought it was. Anyway.
But you see,
yes,
the West Coast, there's two words there. Coast is the key word here. Okay, I just realized I broke down my own point in that it's going to be very hypocritical and ironic.
So it's a perfect time to just say it the first way you thought of it.
I was going to say, I fripping hate water, open water, ocean. I would hate to live next to the ocean. The coast is too close to the ocean for me. I mean, I don't have to live on, the beach, but obviously here in Wisconsin, we border a Great Lake, and I have seen the Great Lake from a distance, and it scared the shit out of me. A river, the Mississippi River, or the Wisconsin River, are both big rivers, but, you can see the other side of the river a few bus lengths away. That was too much water. But I would love to live on a continent island surrounded by water. So that's where the ironic part of my argument comes from, which means there's absolutely no point in me saying I don't want to live on the West Coast anymore.
Well, I think it's a good point that living actually on the coast kind of sucks, in my opinion, because regardless of whether you even want to see the ocean, there's a huge amount of moisture that rolls in, and like salty, cold, wet, disgusting air that is miserable for most of the year, and it like melts your car, and you get mold in your house constantly. But I live about 5 miles inland, which is, look on a map and it looks like we're right on the coast, but even just 5 miles inland, and it's like the ocean doesn't even exist. All it means is that we have beautiful sunsets, and the winters are really mild and the summers are really mild. It's kind of awesome that way.
Oh, jeez. What? Mild, I wish.
What, you're not still in love with shoveling snow?
Shoveling snow is great, but we don't have that mild stuff. It's always the extreme every season.
Yeah, I have a neighbor who came from, I think it was Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure it was Wisconsin, and she still has a little bit of an accent when she says certain words. It's great, but she misses the snow. But the seasons here are just like, it's t-shirt weather, and then it's like t-shirt with a beanie weather. That's as harsh as it gets around here. The only thing you have to worry about is all the people like escaping from California like it's a sinking ship and bringing their garbage culture here. But other than that, I highly recommend the West Coast atmosphere, as far as it's just a great geographic location to live. We're just waiting for the next big earthquake to wipe us all out. But other than that,
oh joy!
Other than that, you're far more likely to get killed by your neighbor anyway.
Well, I mean, that still puts me closer to the whales. I don't, salt can eat away my car all day. It's the whales that bother me. They're out there in the ocean.
Oh, I get it. You want to go live out that South Park episode, don't you?
I've never seen South Park.
What?
So you might have to elaborate.
You haven't seen the most accurate depiction of Japanese culture in the modern media? Uh, there's a few South Park episodes, and I don't watch it anymore because they have this habit of like going too far, and I just don't want to watch something that makes me feel sick. But sometimes they're very clever in representing something in a completely over the top way, and they have an anime episode that you probably have to watch. It's pretty hilarious. As a fan of anime myself, I found it very tasty. And also they have an episode where they sort of explore how Japanese fishermen are like killing whales and how it's such a shocking thing to other people. But in the show, it's because they blame whales for the atomic bombings. But that's sort of, that's spoiler material. But
I'm pretty sure they did cause the atomic bombings.
In these recon photos kindly provided by the American government, we see a whale and a dolphin. Anyway, I'm sure you can find the best parts on YouTube anyway, but that was some quality material. All right. Well, it's been a lot of fun talking with you, Tiger. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? I got a lot of great material for a video here, and it was fun talking with you.
I think my brain is pretty good at the moment without any extra questions on my mind or statements. Yeah.
All right, well, say goodbye for everybody.
Goodbye.
Perfect.